The strange house at the edge of town. I had always heard the stories about the old house at the edge of town. Every town has one. The kind of place parents warn their kids to stay away from. The kind of place teenagers dare each other to sneak into on late Friday nights. But I never believed in ghosts, or curses, or whatever people whispered about it. To me, it was just another broken down house left to rot. That was before I stepped inside. It was a late autumn evening when I first went there. The air was sharp and cold, the sky swallowed by dark gray clouds. I remember the crunch of dead leaves beneath my boots as I made my way up the narrow dirt path that led to the place. The house loomed over me, taller than I expected, its windows like dark eyes staring into my soul. The wood was decayed, the roof sagged in the middle, and the front door hung crooked on rusted hinges. Yet, despite the years of neglect, something about it felt alive. I told myself I was just being dramatic. It was an abandoned building, nothing more. Still, I hesitated at the door. A foul smell wafted from inside, something between mold and rotting meat. I pulled my jacket tighter and told myself I would only take a quick look, maybe snap a picture or two, and then leave. It was supposed to be harmless curiosity, nothing more. The door groaned as I pushed it open, the sound echoing through the hollow halls. The air inside was thick, damp, and suffocating, making my throat itch. My flashlight beam cut through the darkness, illuminating walls covered in peeling wallpaper and strange black stains I couldn't identify. The floor creaked under my weight, and every step I took felt like an intrusion, as though the house was aware of me. I stopped in the main hallway, shining my light upward. The chandelier, rusted and broken, swayed slightly, though there was no breeze. That was the first moment my heart began to race. I tried to calm myself, telling my brain it was just gravity, or the movement of the air as I opened the door. But deep down I knew that wasn't it. As I moved further inside, I found a set of stairs leading to the second floor. The steps were narrow and steep, and the banister was covered in dust thick enough to mark with a finger. Something told me not to go up, but at the same time, I felt a pull as though the house itself wanted me there. Against better judgment, I began to climb. The second floor was colder, unnaturally so. I could see my breath forming small white clouds in front of me. Doors lined both sides of the hallway, each one closed except for the last, which was slightly ajar. I shined my light into one of the rooms, finding only broken furniture and shattered glass scattered across the floor. Still, I couldn't shake the sensation that someone or something was standing just behind me, watching silently. My chest tightened as I approached the half-open door at the end of the hall. The light from my flashlight trembled as my hands shook. Slowly, I nudged the door open. Inside was what looked like a child's bedroom, long abandoned. The wallpaper was faded with cartoon animals, their faces peeled and twisted from years of neglect. A small bed sat in the corner, its frame rusted and its mattress stained. On the floor lay a cracked porcelain doll, its single remaining eye staring straight at me. As soon as my light touched it, I swore I heard something, a faint laugh, high-pitched and hollow, echoing across the room. My blood froze. I spun around, searching the shadows, but there was nothing there. The door behind me creaked and began to close on its own. I lunged forward, pushing it open again, my breathing ragged. "Get a grip," I whispered to myself, though the sound of my voice only made the room feel more alive, as if I had disturbed something ancient. That's when I noticed it. On the wall, just above the bed, words were carved into the plaster. It's not painted, not written, carved. My flashlight revealed deep scratches forming a message. "Leave before night falls." My stomach dropped. The air grew heavier, pressing down on my chest. And then I heard it again, the laugh, only louder this time, closer, as though it was right beside my ear. I didn't wait to see what was behind me. I bolted down the hallway, nearly tripping over loose floorboards, my heart pounding so violently I thought it would burst. The chandelier downstairs was swaying violently now, as though some unseen force had set it in motion. The door I had entered through slammed shut before I reached it. That was the moment I realized the stories weren't just stories. I was not alone in that house. Whispers in the dark, I stood frozen at the bottom of the staircase, my flashlight beam quivering as I gripped it tightly. The front door, the very door I had left ajar, was now shut tight, as if it had never been open. My lungs burned as I forced air in and out, trying to convince myself that this was all just in my head. Old houses creak, drafts slam doors, that's all. But then came the whispers. At first, they were faint. So faint I thought it was the wind sneaking through broken windows. It's a soft murmur that rose and fell like voices talking just beyond hearing. I turned in every direction trying to pinpoint the source, but the sound seemed to surround me. Leave. Leave. The word was there, buried inside the whispers, growing clearer with every second. I gritted my teeth. Stop it!
Oh.
Stouted, my own voice bouncing off the decayed walls. For a moment, silence returned, thick and suffocating. But silence in that house wasn't comforting, it was worse. It felt like something was listening. Gathering courage I didn't really have, I pushed forward into what must have once been the living room. Dust coated everything. Broken furniture slumped against the walls, and a fireplace sat in the corner. Its bricks blackened with ash that hadn't been disturbed in decades. Above it hung a portrait, tilted and cracked. I lifted my flashlight. The painting was of a family, a man, a woman, and a little girl, no older than 6. Their clothes were old-fashioned, from another era. But it wasn't the style that made my skin crawl. It was their eyes. They were too real, too detailed, as if someone had painted them while the family stared directly into their soul. And as my light lingered on the child's face, I felt that the eyes moved. I stumbled back, nearly dropping my flashlight. No, I didn't just see that, I whispered. But when I looked again, the girl's head was slightly turned, her painted eyes now fixed on me. That's when the whispers returned, louder now, swirling through the room. My ears buzzed with them. I pressed my hands against my head, but they seeped through, crawling into my skull. Stay with us. Don't leave. Shadows around the fireplace stretched unnaturally, darker than they should have been. One of them flickered against the wall in a way that didn't match my flashlight beam. It was taller, shaped like a person. I spun around, nothing there. The urge to run clawed at me, but some twisted part of me needed to understand. I yanked the portrait down from the wall. It hit the floor with a sharp crack, and the whispers stopped abruptly as though I had cut off their tongue. My chest rose and fell in rapid bursts, the silence pressing harder than any noise. Beneath the portrait was something I hadn't expected. Another set of scratches in the wall. Unlike the warning upstairs, these were deeper, angrier. Letters gouged into the plaster, overlapping each other as if carved in a frenzy. She never left. The beam of my flashlight flickered, dimmed, then went out. I slammed it against my palm, panicked, but the light refused to return. In the pitch black, the whispers started again. Only now, they weren't whispers. They were breaths. Hot, wet, uneven breaths against the back of my neck. I spun wildly, arms flailing in the dark, desperate to hit whatever was there. My chest tightened as something brushed past me, fast and cold, like a hand grazing my side. "Who's there?" I screamed, my voice cracking, and then laughter. High, broken, childlike. It echoed from the walls, from the floor, from inside my skull. The same laugh I had heard upstairs. Flashlight flickered back to life, casting light across the room. The doll I had left upstairs was now sitting in the middle of the floor, its cracked porcelain face smiling up at me. I staggered back, bile rising in my throat. That thing hadn't been here. There was no way. The air grew heavier, pressing against me like invisible hands. My skin prickled, every hair on my body standing on end. I knew then that whatever haunted this house was in T, just trying to scare meat, wanted me to stay. Forever. I bolted toward the door, grabbing the handle and yanking as hard as I could. It wouldn't budge. I slammed my shoulder against it, kicked at the wood until splinters dug into my boots, but it didn't move an inch. Behind me, the laughter continued. Louder, closer, circling me like a predator. And in the reflection of the broken glass scattered across the floor, I saw her. The little girl from the portrait, standing just a few feet behind me, smiling. The mirror that watched Mev, I couldn't breathe. My chest locked tight as I stared into the shards of glass on the floor. The little girl was there clear as day, standing behind me. Her pale face stretched into a grin that was too wide, too sharp for a child. Her dress looked old, torn at the edges, smeared with something dark. I spun around, flashlight trembling in my hand. No one was there, just empty air. But when I looked back down at the glass, her reflection remained, She was still smiling, still staring straight at me. And then, as I watched in horror, her lips began to move. Stay. The word wasn't spoken aloud. It came from the reflection itself, her mouth forming the words soundlessly, yet somehow it echoed inside my skull. I kicked the glass away, the pieces scattering across the room. My hands shook uncontrollably, sweat dripping down my face despite the freezing air. I had to get out. Out. I didn't care how. Windows, walls, anything. I ran to the nearest window and tried to pry it open, but it was nailed shut, the wood rotting but unmovable. I smashed my flashlight against the glass, and though cracks spread across it like veins, the window refused to break. It was as if the house itself was holding it together. That was when I saw the mirror. It leaned against the far wall of the room, covered in grime and dust, almost invisible in the shadows. But the moment my eyes landed on it, I knew it didn't belong there. It was too tall to clean around the edges, as though someone or something had placed it there deliberately. Against every ounce of reason in my body, I felt drawn to it. My feet moved forward before I could stop them, the beam of my failing flashlight catching the surface. And there she was again, as a little girl. But this time she wasn't behind me. She was right in front of me inside the mirror. Her head tilted slowly to the side, her black eyes wide and unblinking. My own reflection was barely visible, swallowed by darkness, but hers was clear. Lifted a hand and pressed it against the glass. Against my will, my own hand began to rise. It was like invisible strings pulled me closer. My fingertips hovered just inches away from the cold surface. My breath came in shallow bursts. The moment my skin touched the glass, it felt alive. Not hard and cold, but soft, almost like skin stretched too tight. The mirror pulsed beneath my fingers, and her grin widened, splitting her face unnaturally. "Stay with me," her voice whispered, not in the room, not in my ears, but inside my head. I yanked my hand away and stumbled back. The mirror began to ripple like water disturbed by a stone, the girl's reflection shifting with it. Her grin twisted into something monstrous, her jaw unhinging far wider than humanly possible. I screamed and hurled the flashlight at the mirror. The glass shattered into 1,000 pieces, raining across the floor. The whispers exploded into a deafening roar, the sound of countless voices shrieking in agony. But the girl, she didn't disappear. Her reflection remained in every shard of glass, multiplied, surrounding me from all directions. Dozens of her tiny faces, all grinning, all staring, all whispering in unison. "Never leave, never leave, never leave." My legs gave out, and I fell to my knees, hands clamped over my ears. The sound was unbearable, a storm of voices ripping through my mind. My vision blurred, spots of black swimming before my eyes, and then silence. I opened my eyes. The shards of glass were gone. The floor was bare, as if nothing had broken at all. The mirror was gone too, leaving only an empty wall. But I knew better. I could still feel her, watching me, waiting. I stumbled back toward the hallway, desperate to put as much distance between myself and that room as possible. My heart pounded against my ribs like a drum, each beat threatening to break me. I didn't dare look back. As I reached the staircase, I froze. The little girl was standing at the bottom. No reflection, no tricks. She was there, in the flesh, her head tilted just as it had in the mirror, her eyes black voids that seemed to swallow the light. In her hands, she held the porcelain doll, its broken face grinning in perfect mimicry of her own. I couldn't move. I couldn't even breathe. And then she whispered, her voice soft, almost sweet. "You broke it. Now you belong to me." Trapped between the living and the dead, I stood frozen on the staircase, staring at the girl at the bottom. She wasn't a shadow or a trick of the glass this time. She was real. Her pale skin glowed faintly in the dark, her black eyes wide and bottomless. She cradled the porcelain doll like it was alive, her tiny fingers stroking its cracked face. "Belong to me," she whispered again, and the words didn't echo, they crawled. Crawled up the walls, through the floorboards, into my ears. I stumbled back, gripping the banister, my heart hammering so hard I thought it might burst. My body screamed at me to run, but my legs wouldn't listen. She took one slow step forward, then another. Her Her little shoes tapped the wooden floor with a sound that was far too loud, like a hammer striking nails into a coffin. No, you're not real, I stammered, though even as I said it, I knew how stupid it sounded. The air thickened around me, pressing against my chest. My vision blurred at the edges, as though the house itself was sucking the life out of me. I turned and bolted down the hallway, desperate to put distance between us. My boots thudded on the rotting wood, the sound swallowed by the house's endless groans. Doors slammed shut one by one as I ran past them, some on their own, some as if pushed by invisible hands. A loud crash rang behind me as a chandelier had fallen from the ceiling, shattering just feet away. Shards of glass and metal scattered across the floor, blocking the path back to the staircase. The house wasn't letting me out. I turned a corner and nearly fell into a room I hadn't noticed before. Inside was a dining table, long and rotting, still set with dishes coated in a thick layer of dust. At first it seemed empty, but then I saw them. Shapes, figures, people sitting around the table. Their skin was gray and sunken, their empty eye sockets staring straight ahead. They were frozen mid-meal, forks and knives in hand as though they'd been caught in time. One of them had their jaw hanging open, and in the silence, I could almost hear the faint clatter of teeth. I backed up, choking on the stench of rot. The figures didn't move, but their heads turned, all at once, snapping toward me, every one of them. My blood went cold. Their mouths opened in unison, and from them came the same whisper, the first Dee heard since the moment I stepped into this nightmare. Stay, stay, stay. I screamed and staggered back, slamming the door shut. The whispers didn't stop. They seeped through the wood, muffled but endless, like an army of the damned. I ran again, blindly now, until I reached another staircase, this one narrower, winding downward. The basement. My stomach twisted with dread, but the sound of small footsteps behind meal light deliberate pushed me forward. The basement was pitch black, the air damp and suffocating. The stench of mold and decay was overwhelming. My flashlight flickered back to life for a moment, revealing stone walls, shelves covered in dust, and something worse, cages. Rusty iron cages lined the walls, some broken, some still locked tight. Beside them were bones, piles of them, some small, far too small. I gagged, my stomach heaving, bile burning my throat. And then, from the darkness, a voice spoke. You're just like them. I spun around, the beam of my light shaking violently. In the far corner of the basement, the girl stood. But she wasn't alone anymore. Shadows rose behind her, dozens of them, their shapes barely human, their faces distorted, features twisted in agony. They reached for me, their arms long and thin, stretching unnaturally as they whispered, moaned, screamed. I backed into the cages, cold iron pressing against my spine. No, this isn't real, I shouted. But my words only seemed to amuse her. She tilted her head, her grin widening, and for the first time her voice wasn't sweet or childlike. It was deep, layered, as though thousands of voices spoke through her. You came here, you opened the door, you broke the mirror. Now the house is yours, you are ours. The shadows surged forward, wrapping around me cold as death, their fingers digging into my skin like hooks. I thrashed and screamed, but my voice was drowned by the cacophony of theirs. For a moment, everything went black, and then Nee was standing in the hallway again, alone. The house was silent, still, as though nothing had happened. My flashlight lay at my feet, unbroken. The chandelier was back in its place above me, but I knew. The house hadn't let me go. It was toying with me, playing a game, and the game wasn't over. The final night of terror, I stood frozen in the hallway, trembling, my body drenched in cold sweat. The house looked normal again, at least as normal as a decaying, haunted husk could be. But the silence wasn't comforting, it was mocking. Like the house was daring me to take another step. My flashlight buzzed weakly in my hand, its beam cutting only a small path through the dark. My throat was dry, raw from screaming, yet I didn't even realize I had tears streaming down my face until they dripped onto my jacket. I had to get out, no matter what. I forced myself toward the front door again. My legs felt like they were wading through cement, each step heavier than the last. When I reached the door, I didn't hesitate this time. My grabbed the handle with both hands and pulled until my arms burned. It didn't move. I kicked, slammed, pounded, but the door didn't even rattle. It was as solid as stone. And then I heard her, the girl's laugh, that high, broken, sing-song laugh, echoing from the second floor. I tilted my head up, and my blood froze. She was standing at the top of the staircase, her doll in her arms, staring down at me. But she wasn't alone. Behind her stood the shadows, dozens of them, crowding the stairs, their black forms twitching and writhing like living smoke. Their hollow eyes glowed faintly, fixed on me. I staggered back, my shoulder hitting the wall. My chest heaved with shallow breaths, panic threatening to tear me apart. I had no weapons, no escape, nothing but my own useless fear. No more. I whispered to myself, gripping the flashlight tighter. No more running. I charged at the staircase, screaming, swinging the flashlight like a club. The beam flickered violently as I swung it through the air, hitting nothing but cold emptiness. The shadows recoiled, but didn't vanish. The girl tilted her head, amused, her grin stretching unnaturally wide. "You belong here," she said, her voice echoing with 1,000 others. Forever. The shadows surged forward. I swung wildly, but their touch was unbearable. It seared my skin, burning and freezing at the same time. My knees buckled as they swarmed me, dragging me down. "No, I won't stay," I screamed, thrashing with everything I had. My flashlight shattered against the stairs, plunging me into total darkness. But in that darkness, something changed. I felt the wood beneath my hands, the banister, the stairs, solid, real. I clawed my way upward, tearing through the cold that gripped me. Every step was agony, but I kept moving. Up and up until I reached the second floor. The girl stood just feet away, doll in her arms, blocking the hallway. Her face twitched, her smile faltering for the first time. "You can't leave," she hissed, her voice breaking. I lunged forward and shoved her aside. She shrieked, not like a child, but like something ancient, her scream rattling the walls. The hallway stretched and twisted, the floorboards melting beneath my feet, but I didn't stop. At the end of the hallway was a window. Unlike the others, this one glowed faintly with pale moonlight. My only chance. I ran for it. Behind me, the girl and her shadows screamed in unison, a deafening roar of rage. Hands clawed at my back, ripping my jacket, tearing at my skin. But I didn't look back. With a final desperate cry, I hurled myself through the glass. The window shattered around me, shards slicing into my arms and face as I tumbled into the cold night air. I hit the ground hard, the impact knocking the breath from my lungs. Pain exploded through my body, but I was outside. I was out. I lay there in the grass, gasping, blood dripping from my wounds, staring up at the sky. The moon was bright, the stars scattered across the heavens. For the first time that night, I felt the air move freely in my lungs. I had escaped, or so I thought. Because when I rolled over, my stomach dropped. The house was gone. In its place was nothing but endless black woods stretching in every direction. No road, no town, no sky above the trees. Just shadows, stretching forever. And from those shadows came to laugh, eye-broken, sweet. The little girl's voice. "You never leave." The doll's face stared up at me from the ground beside me, cracked, grinning. And in the reflection of its single glass eye, I saw the house again looming, waiting. I realized then the truth. The house didn't trap me inside. It trapped me everywhere, forever.